39 out of 44. That number alone tells you everything about where the WNBA stands right now. 39 of the Indiana Fever's road games this season will be played in NBA-sized arenas, not slightly larger venues. Full NBA buildings, 20,000-seat houses in major markets across the country. And the season hasn't started. The rosters aren't finalized. Tickets in Toronto are already sold out. What you're watching isn't just a basketball story. This is a financial earthquake, and the aftershocks are hitting every single corner of women's basketball at the same time. The Caitlin Clark effect has officially outgrown the building. And more than that, it has outgrown the narrative that used to surround it. Because for the first time since Clark arrived in this league, every major stakeholder, the owners, the players, the networks, Nike, are all moving in the same direction simultaneously. And the direction they're moving is toward the largest commercial opportunity in women's sports history, with Caitlin Clark at the center of every transaction. Today, we're going deeper than the arena upgrades and the sellout headlines. We're connecting the dots on a structural shift that just fundamentally rewired how this league distributes power and money, and why the critics, the skeptics, and even the players who spent last season resenting Clark's spotlight have officially run out of arguments. If you've been following this story with us, you know these pieces have been falling into place one by one. Today, they've all landed at once. And if this kind of deep analysis is exactly why you come back to this channel, hit that like button right now. It tells us what you want more of, and we have a lot more ground to cover before this video ends. The first domino fell in Atlanta. The Atlanta Dream relocated both of their home games against the Indiana Fever, June 20th and August 16th, to State Farm Arena, home of the Atlanta Hawks. That's a building holding more than 21,000 fans. To be fair, Atlanta moved a total of 5 games to that larger venue this season, not just the Fever matchups. Those other upgrades carry real value for the franchise's overall market visibility in one of the South's biggest sports cities. But let's not pretend we don't know which 2 dates every ticket broker in the Southeast was watching the moment that schedule went public. There is a layer to the Atlanta move that cuts deeper than marketing decisions. This is the same franchise that used a scheduling conflict as the official explanation for a similar arena upgrade last season. The WNBA community noticed, analysts connected the dots publicly, the optics were uncomfortable for everyone involved. And this year, rather than running that exact play again and hoping the same scrutiny doesn't follow, the Dream got ahead of it. Upgrade the venues, fill the buildings, count the revenue, move forward. It's a more direct approach, and based on the ticket demand already building for those games, it is working. Now let's go north of the border, because the Toronto situation is even more remarkable than what's happening in Atlanta. The expansion Toronto Tempo, a brand new franchise in their very first WNBA season, has already sold out their home game against the Fever. Already completely sold out. In March, before a single regular season game has been played anywhere in the league, before the Indiana Fever even have their final roster locked in, the Tempo moved this game from their standard home at the Coca-Cola Coliseum, which holds fewer than 8,000 fans, to Scotiabank Arena, home of the Raptors, which holds approximately 20,000. That's more than 12,000 additional tickets sold. In the first season this franchise has ever competed, the pricing tells the market value story better than any analysis can. Upper bowl seats for this game start at $150. Lower bowl runs upward of $700. For those not deeply familiar with the Toronto sports market, this city is one of the most competitive and passionate in North America. Maple Leafs tickets command those exact same prices, and getting quality seats to a Leafs game is a notoriously brutal exercise that has defined the city's sports culture for decades. There are waiting lists. There are generational season ticket holders. Getting in costs real money. And now a WNBA game featuring Caitlin Clark is trading at equivalent value in that same market. Toronto sports fans do not spend Leafs money on things they're not serious about. The city is telling you something very clearly. That $700 lower bowl floor is the free market placing a precise dollar value on what Clark brings to a building, and it aligns closely with what financial analysts estimated during the 2024 season, that Clark, when healthy and playing, generates upward of $1 billion in annual economic activity for the WNBA, $1 billion per season. And further analysis placed her share of the league's total economic output in 2024 at approximately 26%. One player. In a league with roughly 140 total roster spots across all teams, responsible for more than a quarter of all the league's economic activity, that level of commercial concentration in a single athlete has no real parallel in the modern landscape of women's professional sports anywhere in the world. To understand why this moment carries the weight that it does, you have to hold the historical context alongside the current picture. For most of its existence, the WNBA operated in a state of persistent economic fragility. Teams played in smaller arenas because they couldn't reliably fill larger ones. Franchises required financial support structures from the NBA to remain viable. Broadcast deals were modest by major professional sports standards. Sponsorship ceilings were real and regularly hit. The league survived and built a passionate and loyal fan base, but the kind of commercial scale that makes a league structurally self-sustaining felt perpetually out of reach. That context matters enormously because 39 NBA-sized arena road games in a single regular season and a first-year expansion team selling out 20,000 seats in March is not incremental improvement. It's a category shift. Beyond the arena upgrades, there's another piece of the commercial picture worth examining: the way teams are packaging tickets around Clark's appearances. Multiple franchises have structured their half-season ticket packages by excluding Indiana Fever games entirely. The logic is deliberate. Fever games command premium individual pricing that makes bundling them into discounted packages a poor business decision. When a game will sell at maximum market price on its own, there's no rational incentive to discount it into a package. Teams know this. The fact that multiple organizations are making this exact call simultaneously tells you exactly where Fever games sit in the demand hierarchy. At the very top, priced separately, sold first. Then there's the Washington Mystics situation, which tells a completely different kind of story and is equally revealing for what it says about league dynamics. When Indiana comes to Washington this season, the game will be at CarFirst Arena. Capacity, approximately 4,500 fans. The Mystics did move one game to the larger Capital One Arena, home of the Wizards, but that contest is against the Chicago Sky, not the Fever. It's public record that Mystics center Shakira Austin was vocal last season about her frustration with the noise level inside buildings packed with Fever fans. Whether the small venue decision for the Fever game is connected to that dynamic is something only the Mystics organization knows with certainty. What we can state plainly is this: 4,500 seats for one of the most commercially valuable games on the entire WNBA calendar creates a scarcity math problem that will resolve itself immediately in the resale market. The Indiana Fever's own communication style reflects the broader shift in posture happening across the league. When they dropped their official schedule announcement this preseason, the approach was a marked departure from last year's Now You Know campaign, which was aggressive, intentional, swagger-heavy. The message in that campaign was unmistakable. Things have changed. We're here, and we're going to remind you. This year's version is quieter, more focused, business mode energy. When you no longer need to announce your arrival, you stop announcing it and start executing. The Fever are not spending energy this offseason making a point. They're preparing to compete for hardware, and the league around them is scrambling to build bigger stages to put them on. But here is where this story pivots from interesting to genuinely historic. And the pivot point is a single document, the brand new collective bargaining agreement. In previous seasons, when a team upgraded their arena for a Fever road game and packed it with Clark fans, the players were not celebrating. The frustration was real. The conversation was public. Why does she get all the credit? Why does the league reorganize itself around one player? And underneath that frustration was a completely legitimate structural grievance. The players were competing, absorbing the physical toll, building the product, and they were not directly benefiting when their own games generated outsized commercial returns because Clark was on the opposing roster. That disconnect wasn't just a PR problem. It was a structural flaw in how revenue flowed through the league, and it created the kind of friction that surfaced publicly throughout the 2024 season, on the court, in post-game interviews, and across every social media platform where WNBA discourse lives. The new CBA addresses that directly, and it does so in the most concrete way possible. Under the agreement finalized before this season, players league-wide receive up to 20% of gross revenue. When the Atlanta Dream fills State Farm Arena for a Fever game and generates 4 to 8 times the revenue of a standard game night, every player in the WNBA gets a direct financial share of that money. Not just the Dream's roster, not just the visiting Fever players, the entire league-wide player pool. Suddenly, the player who spent last season frustrated about Fever fans being too loud in her home building now has a direct financial incentive to want those fans to travel farther and pay more. The dynamic has been reversed, not because anyone changed their mind and not because anyone had a productive conversation about it, but because the CBA put real money on the table that simply did not exist before. Before we keep going, drop a comment right now with which of these arena moves surprised you the most. Toronto selling out Scotiabank Arena in March before a single game has been played. Atlanta going all in with State Farm. Or is it the Washington situation at 4,500 seats that has your attention? Tell us below. We read every single comment on this channel. Now let's talk about the full scope of what the CBA revenue shift actually means, because the numbers get more striking the further you run them. 4 to 8 times the revenue on a single road game night. That's the multiplier generated when a team moves from a standard WNBA venue to an NBA-sized arena with Clark-level ticket demand driving prices up simultaneously. When you apply that multiplier across a schedule where 39 of 44 road games are in NBA buildings, you're not looking at a bump in revenue. You're looking at a fundamental restructuring of the Fever's economic footprint within the league, and by extension, the financial picture of every team that gets to host Indiana. Under the new CBA, with players collecting up to 20% of gross revenue league-wide, this isn't abstract policy language. It's arithmetic that shows up in paychecks. And the players who read the agreement carefully and understood what the revenue-sharing structure actually means know something now that changes the entire internal dynamic of this league. They know that every healthy game Caitlin Clark plays is money in their account, not metaphorically, literally through the revenue distribution mechanism the Players Association negotiated. That knowledge doesn't just change how players talk about Clark in front of cameras. It changes the internal calculus of what it means to compete in a league where one player is generating 26% of total economic output. Rational self-interest is a powerful realignment tool. The player culture shift this creates is worth examining carefully. In 2024, there was genuine friction, some of it public, some of it operating below the surface, around the question of why Clark's presence defined so much of the league's commercial narrative. Players who had been the best in the world at their craft for years found themselves in a league whose external story was organized almost entirely around a second-year player. That's a difficult psychological reality, and the frustration it generated was understandable and human. But it was also frustration rooted in a structural reality that has now fundamentally changed. The CBA didn't ask anyone to feel differently about Caitlin Clark. It changed what financially rational behavior looks like, and financial rationality has a way of reshaping conversations faster than any public messaging campaign ever could. While the arena and CBA picture was being reshaped, Nike was executing a parallel strategy, and it goes further than what has been made public. Earlier this offseason, the brand confirmed the release of the Kobe 5 Pro Cross in a coconut milk colorway, priced at $190 and dropping in June. That release is expected to generate significant volume through Clark's market association with the Nike label. But that is the appetizer. The main event has not landed yet. Clark's long-awaited signature shoe is reportedly real, reportedly in a category of its own, and reportedly coming. Ryan Rocco, the announcer who coined the call that became the soundtrack for Clark's three-point shots, went on record saying he has seen the shoes and that when they drop, they are going to be incredible. He's clearly bound by some level of confidentiality because he stopped himself before providing any specifics. The public record shows the signature shoe is targeting a drop in the 2026 holiday season. That timeline puts a Caitlin Clark product in the most commercially intensive window of the year, the gift market, December, when consumer attention and purchasing behavior converge at their annual peak, and it positions her as the lead commercial story in women's basketball through an entire WNBA off-season. Before we continue, if this kind of research-backed analysis has been your go-to source for understanding what's actually happening inside this league, becoming a channel member is the best way to keep it going. Your support is what makes coverage at this level possible. Hit that join button below. Nike does not build holiday season signature releases for athletes they're uncertain about. That level of supply chain commitment, design investment, and marketing infrastructure is reserved for athletes the company has decided are category-defining over the long term. The strategic timing is also precise in a way that suggests deliberate planning around a specific scenario. The 2026 holiday drop is positioned to ride the wave of whatever Clark produces on the court in 2025. If she wins the Most Valuable Player award, which early markets have her co-favored to do, or if the Fever compete deep into the playoffs, the signature shoe launch doesn't arrive as a product. It arrives as a cultural event tied to a player at the peak of her competitive story arc. Nike isn't reacting to what Clark has already accomplished. They're planning around what they've assessed she's about to do. That forward-looking structure from Nike reflects something every major stakeholder in this story now appears to share: the view that year 3 is the convergence point. Clark enters 2025 with 2 full seasons of professional experience, a franchise that has spent 2 complete off-seasons building systems around her specific strengths, and a league that has structurally reorganized its commercial infrastructure around her presence. The preseason picture right now is unlike anything women's basketball has generated in its history. Buildings selling out months in advance, no rosters set, no games played, and the commercial machinery running at full capacity before a single tip-off. If you know someone who still doesn't fully understand why the Caitlin Clark era is different from anything this league has seen before, share this video with them right now. This is the breakdown that cuts through the noise and shows exactly how the pieces connect. And then there's the moment that arrived with zero coordination from any marketing team, because you cannot coordinate moments like this. Clark was on the sideline of a Pacers game this preseason, working as a credentialed photographer, vest, camera, credentials, just out there being a human being having fun, not taking herself too seriously, doing the kind of spontaneous thing that makes casual fans feel like they actually know who you are. The broadcast picked her up on the baseline, and what followed led to Luka Dončić, one of the biggest names in global basketball, a player with a truly massive international following, being asked on camera about his relationship with Clark. His answer was simple: he's a fan. He watches her games. He wants to go in person and see her play. No marketing department writes that clip. No brand partnership budget produces that kind of authenticity. When a player of Dončić's stature volunteers himself into your narrative publicly, something very specific happens. His audience discovers you. Basketball fans who had never watched a WNBA game closely, who consumed the sport primarily through the NBA lens, suddenly had a reason to look. That is the compounding nature of the Clark effect in its purest form. It doesn't just maintain the audience it has built. It continuously recruits from other large platforms through gravitational pull. Every time a star from another sport publicly acknowledges Clark, their followers get an introduction. The Luka moment was spontaneous. The ripple it generated across social media over the following days was real, measurable, and pointed new eyes directly at the league. That's not a footnote in the preseason story, it's a blueprint. Here is the picture that emerges when you put all of these pieces together. And it is the picture that makes 2025 genuinely unlike any season this league has operated within before. In every previous year of the Clark era, at least one major stakeholder group was pushing back against the tide. The players had legitimate financial grievances about the revenue structure. Some owners were cautious about the full infrastructure commitment. The media narrative remained divided. Multiple forces were working against the commercial momentum at the same time, creating friction that slowed what could have been a faster build. That resistance has structurally collapsed. Not because everyone had a change of heart, not because a difficult conversation resolved anything, because every financial incentive in the entire ecosystem now points in the same direction simultaneously. Owners are upgrading arenas because 4 to 8 times the revenue on a single game night is not a complicated business case. The math makes the decision for you. Players are legally aligned under the CBA. They have a contractual stake in Clark's spotlight being as bright as it can possibly be. Nike has committed its most significant long-term investment in women's basketball to Clark's brand. Luka Dončić is on national television telling his audience he wants to watch her play. Expansion teams are selling out 20,000-seat arenas in March. The networks have their star, the sponsors have their face, the fans have their arena. And every gear in the machine is turning in the same direction for the first time. What comes next is what all of this infrastructure was built to support. The franchise-level arena decisions, the CBA provisions, the Nike category commitment, the Toronto sellout in March. None of that is hype. Infrastructure is the opposite of hype. You don't build infrastructure for something you think is temporary. You build it for something you're betting on. And right now, every major player in the WNBA ecosystem has placed their bet. If the Fever construct the right roster, run the right systems, and Clark stays healthy through a full season, the 2025 WNBA season won't just be another chapter in this story. It will be the chapter that makes everything that came before it look like the setup for something much larger than anyone outside this community has been willing to say out loud. If you're not subscribed yet, right now is the time. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single update as this season begins to unfold. There is going to be a lot to track. Roster decisions, arena sellouts, on-court performance, and everything building toward that shoe drop. And the next video is already in the works. You want to be here for it. See you there.